Hey, what is going on guys? Represent Stealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the new strong and weak picks heading into patch 8.15. Now before we get into the video, this is going to be sponsored by Overwolf and their app Legendary Builds. If you guys have never heard of Legendary Builds, it's a great app if you're looking to stay up to date with the current builds and runes that pro players are using on each patch. So if we take a look at how the app works here, it's going to give you information on every single champion in the game that pro players and high elo players are running on those champions in this patch. But for example, let's just take a look at Echo here. We're going to click on Echo and we're going to see the most recent builds and rune setups that pros are running and high elo players are running on Echo in this patch. You can click on it and you can expand it here to see a more detailed setup of the runes, of the exact runes and the skill order. And as you can see here, it's very up to date. The app is also fully functional when you are in game as well. You can pull up the app in game so you don't have to tab out, which is a really nice feature. It's especially good if you're trying to learn a new champion, because at certain points in the game you might be unsure of what you'd want to buy, and if you're tabbing out, going online and checking out builds, then it is going to waste quite a bit of time. So just having the app available for you when you're in game is just really convenient, and it's going to allow you to grab your items and know what you should be buying without having to waste any time. So if you are someone who is looking to stay up to date with the most current runes and builds, then I definitely recommend checking out Legendary Builds, guys. There's going to be a link down in the description below that you can use to download it. It's 100% free as well, so there's no risk in trying out the app. It's a really great app, guys, and I would definitely recommend it. So we'll take a look at the item changes here, and then after that we'll go into detail about which AD carries are going to benefit most from the changes and then which AD carries won't benefit very much at all. So Stormrazor is getting a change to where the total cost is getting lowered by 400. The AD though on the item is also getting lowered by 10, and the attack speed is getting lowered by 5%. I would definitely take that trade-off though there of having the decreased price on Stormrazor for the little bit less AD and the less attack speed. This does mean you're going to be able to grab this much earlier on into the game. It is going to give you a better early game one item spike on a lot of AD carries, and I do think that with this cost decrease here on this item, and then with the other items also getting a cost decrease, this is going to give crit AD carries a better power spike than in previous patches. So Zeal items are also getting a cost decrease for next patch, or the completed Zeal items are getting a cost decrease. Ruin's Hurricane, Phantom Dancer, Static Shiv, as well as Rapid Fire Cannon are all getting their cost decreased by 100 gold. So that means that if you're going for Stormrazor into something like Static Shiv, you are going to have a 500 gold decrease there for next patch. So it just means that AD carries will be hitting their item spikes a lot sooner, or crit AD carries will be hitting their spikes a lot sooner, and it is just going to feel a lot nicer in my opinion for 8.15. And then Infinity Edge is also getting a cost decrease on the item. It's going from 3,600 down to 3,400. The AD is also getting lowered on it though, from 80 down to 70, and the crit as true damage is being lowered from 15% down to 10%. So this does mean though that if you're going for something like Stormrazor into Rapid Fire Cannon and then Infinity Edge, the total cost of that build is going to be lowered by 700 for next patch. So this is going to mean that crit AD carries are going to have a much easier time reaching their 3 item spike and reaching their mid game spike than in previous patches. And then some other item changes for AD carries that don't really mean a ton. Essence Reaver is getting a buff. It's going from 70 AD up to 75. I'm pretty sure Lucian is the only AD carry that's really building this item as a core item in this patch right now, and I don't really think that with a 5 AD increase here, it's really gonna get that much popular. I think that if you're playing a crit AD carry in next patch, you're gonna be going for Stormrazor, Zeal item, and then Infinity Edge, and at the very earliest, you'd be grabbing Essence Reaver as like a 4th or 5th item. I just don't see this being a core item on crit AD carries due to the fact that the other crit items are being buffed. And the Mercurial Scimitar is getting a change. The AD is being lowered from 65 down to 50, and the total cost is being lowered from 3,600 down to 3,400. Now, similar to Essence Reaver, this is not an item you're really going to be building as a core item on your AD carries. You're going to be grabbing this as like your 4th or 5th item a lot of the time, so this change really doesn't matter too much, and it's not going to be a change that will make any AD carry stronger or weaker for next patch. So overall here, with these changes to the crit items, AD carries that will be getting stronger for next patch, I think 3 to really look out for are going to be Jhin, Draven, and Quinn. Quinn is already one of the strongest early to mid game AD carries in 8.14, and with Stormrazor getting a cost decrease and with something like her Static Shiv also getting a cost decrease, it does mean that Quinn's going to be hitting an even earlier mid game spike. So I do think that Quinn is going to be a great pick for next patch. She's not even getting any indirect nerfs for 8.15, so she's definitely one to look out for. Draven as well as Jhin as well. With the Stormrazor getting the cost decrease, it does mean that they will also be hitting an earlier spike. So with these AD carries already being really good in the early game, and with them being great early to mid game AD carries, they're just going to get even stronger for 8.15. And then other AD carries that will also be benefiting from these changes are going to be like Tristana, Vayne, Caitlyn, Xayah, Sivir. All of these AD carries who go for Stormrazor first and then go for a Zeal item second will also obviously be getting buffed by these changes, but I don't think they're getting buffed as much as the Draven, the Jhin, and the Quinn, just due to the fact that those AD carries are already super strong in this patch. They already do have really good early games, so they're just going to be even harder to deal with now in 8.15. And then a few AD carries that get weaker due to these changes for next patch. The first one is Ezreal. So Ezreal does not benefit at all from these item changes. He doesn't build any crit in his build path. Ezreal did not get any sort of buff for next patch, and he's already sitting at one of the lowest win rates for any AD carry in 8.14. So with all these other crit AD carries getting buffed for next patch, I think that Ezreal is going to be a pretty weak pick in 8.15. These Rageblade AD carries, Kai'Sa, Varus, and Kog'Maw, I guess as well as Kalista, are also going to be quite a bit weaker for next patch. They did not get really any buff to their build path. Rageblade got nerfed a few patches ago, and with crit items getting buffed in this patch, it doesn't really leave those AD carries in a very good spot for 8.15. So if we take a look at champions that are getting directly stronger for next patch, the first one here is Fizz. Fizz's W is getting buffed by quite a bit in next patch. The base damage there on it is getting buffed very significantly, and the AP ratio is also getting buffed. His ultimate is getting buffed too for next patch. The small shark, the medium-sized shark, and the big shark, all of their AP ratios are getting buffed, and I think that with these changes, this should bring Fizz back to being one of the stronger assassins for 8.15. When he did end up getting the changes to his W in 8.14, it dropped him down quite a bit, and he wasn't really having a ton of success, but with these changes here, I think he is going to be one of the stronger assassins for next patch. So Aurelia is getting a lot of different changes for next patch. She's getting a buff to her passive, the damage on that is getting increased. She's getting a base health increase as well as a base AD increase. So the base AD increase there is really nice because she is a Trinity Force user, and the interaction between your base damage and the Sheen proc is really nice on Aurelia. Now all of her other abilities though are getting nerfed for next patch. So her Q's damage is getting lowered, the range on it is also getting lowered. Her W, the damage reduction, is going to be 50% at all ranks now instead of 65% when you get it maxed out. Her E is also getting a nerf, the damage there, and then the range is getting nerfed on the E too. And then lastly, her ultimate is getting a range nerf as well. So with all of these changes here, I think that So overall, I think that top lane Aurelia does get stronger with these changes. Top lane Aurelia is going to be utilizing her passive a lot more, just because with top lane, you're going to be in more tank matchups, in more bruiser matchups. So you're going to be able to stack up your passive and you're going to be able to get your auto attacks in. So I think that for top lane Aurelia, this should be a buff. For mid lane Aurelia though, because mid lane Aurelia isn't going to utilize her passive as much as top lane Aurelia, I think that with these changes, it's going to either be power neutral or a nerf to mid lane Aurelia for next patch. Lee Sin is getting a change to his Q for next patch, and what these changes are going to mean for Lee Sin is that in the first few levels, you are going to be a little bit weaker. Your Q is going to deal a little bit less damage because the base damage on his Q is getting lowered, but the bonus AD ratio on it is getting increased. So once you do end up grabbing your warrior, once you grab some bonus AD on Lee Sin, then your Q is going to be dealing a lot more damage. So in the mid game, you're going to be a much stronger pick. If you can still snowball the early game with Lee Sin, and if you can do well there, then your mid to late game with this Q change is going to be a lot better. Olaf is getting buffed for next patch. His W's attack speed is being increased by 15% at all ranks. So this helps out jungle Olaf more so than top lane Olaf. It increases jungle Olaf's clear speed. It also makes his clear healthier, and it adds to his dueling potential in the early game. So I think that with this change, Olaf should be a pretty strong jungle pick for 8.15. Syndra is getting a really interesting change to her Q for next patch. The damage is being increased by 20 at rank 1. So if you're a good Syndra player, if you can consistently land your Qs in the first few levels, then this can add for a lot more kill pressure in the laning phase for Syndra. I think that she is still going to be a relatively weak pick though, just because the meta that we're in, we're seeing a ton of assassins being played, and Syndra isn't very good into these assassin picks. So unless you're really able to do a lot with this change in the first few levels, and you are able to just look for kills in the first few levels with Syndra, I still think she is going to be a weaker mage pick. But if you are an experienced Syndra player, then I can see this change being very good for you for next patch. And the last champion getting buffed for next patch is going to be Thresh. His W is getting a cooldown decrease, and his E is getting a little bit more damage, or the passive on his E is getting a bit more damage in the early game. So these changes don't mean too much for Thresh. Obviously, it's a nice buff here, but I think that Thresh is going to stay about as strong as he is in patch 8.14. for 8.15. These changes don't seem like they're really going to make Thresh that much better, and I think he's just going to stay a pretty average support pick for next patch. So if we take a look at things that are getting weaker now in patch 8.15, Stopwatch is getting a nerf. They're making the transform time 10 minutes again instead of 8 minutes. So what this means is that assassin picks will be stronger for next patch. It's going to give them a little bit more of a window of opportunity to look for their all-in. It does mean that these mage picks in the mid lane and just picks that are susceptible to getting dove in the early game are going to be a little bit weaker because they won't be getting the stopwatch as soon. So supports are getting hit with a nerf for 8.15. You're now only going to be able to buy 2 potions on supports at the start of the game, because what they're doing is they're increasing the starting price of the starting item on supports by 50 gold. So what this means is that your sustain in the laning phase now is going to be a little bit weaker. So when you are taking trades as a support in the laning phase, you do have to be a bit more cautious now, because you're not just going to have 3 pots to be able to heal back up the HP that you lose. If you do end up taking a bad trade now, it is going to be more punishable in 8.15. And I think that what this means is that aggro champions, your aggro supports, your aggro AD carries are going to be stronger for 8.15, and your passive supports, your heal shield supports like your Janna, your Sona, your Soraka, that just kind of want to sit back more so in the laning phase and they don't really want to take too many trades, are going to be a little bit weaker for 8.15. So Kindred is getting a few nerfs for next patch. These are definitely deserved nerfs because Kindred is one of the strongest junglers in 8.14. So her W is getting a change to where the attack speed is being lowered from 50% to 25%. And then her ultimate's cooldown is being increased by 20 at all ranks. So overall, I think that these are pretty light nerfs for Kindred. I really don't think that these bump her out of S tier for next patch. They do make her a bit weaker, but she is still going to be a very strong jungle pick in 8.15. So Fiddle's support is getting hit with a nerf for this patch, and I guess this would also hurt Fiddle jungle if you're a Fiddle jungle player, but the mana on his E is getting increased there. It's being increased by 20 at rank 1, so that means that you're not just going to be able to spam out your E brainlessly in lane as Fiddlesticks whenever it's up and try to get poke in lane. You could do that in previous patches and you would almost never run out of mana, so it just made him a very strong pick, but you're going to have to be a little bit more cautious now about how you're using your mana in the laning phase, and he might be a bit more punishable now in next patch. I do still think he is going to be a strong support pick though. I don't think that these two changes here are enough to drop him out of S tier. And then along with Fiddlesticks, Morgana's getting hit with a nerf as well. She's getting the kind of the same change. She's getting a mana cost increase there on her E, and her mana regen is getting lowered too. So this means that you are going to have to be a little bit more cautious with your mana use in the laning phase with Morgana. I do still think they are going to be strong picks though. Nerfing the mana just means that you can't brainlessly spam your abilities in lane, so I just think that you're gonna have to play them a bit more smarter in the laning phase, but that's pretty much it. I still think they are gonna be great picks for 8.15. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, then please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.